connect, or click on the button that's popping up in the chat, and you just need to put in a couple of details so that our team can get in touch just to say hi, find out a bit more about you, because we just love to meet new people.
Yeah.
Get to know you a bit more. So why don't you do that?
Well, I think we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit, won't we, Andy? But we'll have a song, I think.
We
Should have
do,
a song?
yeah.
Should we have a song, guys? Let's have a song. Why don't we hand over to the team for another beautiful song.
How high would I climb mountains if the mountains were where you hide? Oh, how far I'd scale the valleys if you graced the other side. Oh, how long have I chased rivers from lonely seas to where they rise? Against the rush of grace descending from the source of its supply. 'Cause in the highlands and the heartache, you're neither more nor less inclined. I would search and stop at nothing. You're just not that hard to find. I will praise you on the mountains. I will praise you when the mountain's in my way. You're the summit where my feet are. So I will praise you in the valleys all the same. song of ascent. From the gravest of all valleys come the pastures we call grace. A mighty river flowing upwards from a deep but empty grave. Thank you, Lord. I will praise you on the mountains. I will praise you when the mountains in my way. You're the summit where my feet are. So I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows. No less faithful when the night leads me astray. You're the heaven where my heart is. In the highlands and the heartache all the same.
I can never get tired of that song. What an awesome song it is to be singing. I love the fact that we get to spend some of our Tuesday nights spending some time in worship. If you're wondering, Andy Gilbert hasn't got taller. I've replaced him because very soon we are going to be doing some reflections with Helena Temple. And I thought Andy was probably going to be too easy on you.
Okay.
I thought he looked like he was feeling a bit soft, like he was going to ask you some easy questions. I want to make sure we asked you some challenging questions tonight.
Okay.
So we are going to take the opportunity in a little while to ask Helena some questions in about a minute, actually. So I hope you're
so
feeling
get 'em in.
ready. If you've got questions that you want to ask, you can drop them. There's a link if you want to submit them anonymously, or you can just own them and put them in the comments, put them in the chat, and I will put them to Helena Temple. And if other people don't come up with questions, I am ready and raring to ask you things
Please help.
about your fantastic message
help.
on Sunday. What a powerful, moving message it was. Before we come on, though, to talking about your message, we want to mention the fact that before we finish today, we're going to take the opportunity to pray together as well. I know we've got a number of prayer requests that we're going to pray for from Sunday, but if you've got anything that you're praying for that you want us to join with you in prayer for, you can submit that going to proclaimers.com/prayer, or there's probably a link appearing somewhere. If you're at proclaimers.online.church, there's a button that literally says prayer, and I'm sure we'll pop a link in the chat on Facebook as well. If you're on YouTube, you're on your own, I'm afraid, but I'm sure you can get to proclaimers.com/prayer, and do let us know if you've got any prayer requests, or indeed if there's anything that you're thanking God for on this Tuesday night. Now, enough preamble.
Okay.
Helena Temple, I'm going to take this opportunity to ask you a bit about your message from Sunday, a powerful message, a moving message,
Yes,
and I think a
thanks.
really timely message. But I would love you to help those of us who, you know, in the bank holiday Monday and the rush of Tuesday at work or whatever, might have forgotten a bit about what your message was about,
Never.
may have lost a little focus, maybe didn't get a chance to join us. Can you, in a few sentences, sum up what you were talking about on Sunday?
Gosh, in a few sentences. So I guess the premise of the message was, you know, we're talking about the return still. And, you know, we've talked a lot in the last few weeks in the series about how personally we deal with returning to kind of life as we know it, returning to on-site services, all this kind of stuff. But I was conscious that maybe we needed to address things that the challenges that might come with the return as a community. You know, I've talked in previous weeks about how important community is, but, you know, this last year has been crazy. And has shown that there's a lot of division in the world, and unfortunately that division will extend to our community. So we need to know how to deal with potential division based on, you know, political opinion, you know, opinion on different social issues, that kind of thing, but also interpersonal relationships. There's going to be challenges and issues there, and ultimately, you know, a lot of people's lives have changed in lockdown, and I was just kind of trying to be really honest and get people to be honest, you know, with themselves, and again, myself included, that actually there's a potential to judge people based on what their experience of lockdown has been or what they've said and done in lockdown. And that's like an issue that we have to deal with ourselves so it doesn't affect us as a community, because the more people we get together in one space, the more we rub shoulders with each other again, the more likely it is that we're going to have conflict. So we need to learn how to deal with that well. So try to cover quite a wide range of things.
Yeah. And I guess before you talk to us a bit about what the solution is or how we navigate that, do you think do you think things have become more divisive over the past year? And if they have, why do you think that's happened?
100%. Like, I think we were heading that way anyway. Like, I think with the rise of interacting more online, interacting more with social media, all of our kind of news outlets, mainly people getting their news sources from social media rather than reading the newspaper or tuning into whatever local, the BBC News or Channel 4 News. Now we've got, over the last however many years, we've had increasing diversity in the way we receive our updates of the world, and therefore how we perceive what's going on in the world, because everything is got some kind of slant on it now, hasn't it, in how it's reported. And our social media feeds in particularly, we get stuck in these kind of echo chambers because the algorithms filter the stuff that we want to see. We were seeing that pre-pandemic for sure. But then during the pandemic, obviously we were forced even more online or solely online in terms of our interaction with each other and of how we source what's going on in the world. So that is just a recipe kind of for disaster, really, in terms of polarizing of opinions, of disagreeing badly. And instead of even maybe because we aren't able to disagree well or have a meaningful debate because of the context in which we're doing it, increasing like cancel culture. So we just don't want to listen to anyone who we don't agree with on maybe one issue, or because we don't agree with them on one issue, we say, I don't agree with you on anything. Yeah. And I don't want to speak to you anymore. Delete off Facebook, stop, unfollow, all this kind of stuff. And then that just worse. It fuels itself, it feeds itself, and we get more and more entrenched in our own beliefs and kind of wary of anyone else who thinks differently. And so we're just seeing this huge polarizing of opinions on different things, which has been so evident, I think, in the news in the last year as well. Yeah,
and I guess that's kind of all well and good in a sense while we remain online in our interaction, but then when we have to come back together again,
exactly,
it becomes more of a challenge.
Yeah, because that's the beauty of the church is its diversity, and that's not, when I say diversity, yes, diversity of race, background, everything, but also diversity of opinion, and the fact that it doesn't matter what we think about, I don't know, which party we voted for in the last election, we still are united in our love for Jesus and his church. But, that is challenged when issues get pretty heated. And the reason they get heated is because we care about them. And because we care so much, that's when we can potentially conflict with people, because it means so much to us.
Yeah. And I can see there's already some questions coming in, but before we come to these, I wonder if you can then speak to, what's the solution? Where did you go to find an answer for this? And, in summary, how do we respond?
Yeah, so I thought, obviously, the place to go with the Bible. It's always a good place to start, right? Yeah. And I wanted to look at, what I think is the most kind of famous return story of the Bible, and that's the parable of the prodigal son. It's a parable that Jesus tells to illustrate God's grace and love for us. But I think there's different characters within that story that I think we can all identify with. And there's the prodigal son who goes off, makes bad decisions, messes up, and then comes back sort of with his tail between his legs, had to plead forgiveness. The father in the story forgives him, and not just forgives him, but shows him this amazing grace, lavishes a party on him, just so glad that he's home. It doesn't matter what he's done, and because he really messes up, but it doesn't matter, he's home, he was lost, he's now found, that's all that matters. And then you've got the brother who has been there all along and has been really good and has been helping out and working hard, and has never really had a big party like that thrown for him, so he gets really disgruntled and annoyed and resentful of his brother, who really should be celebrated the fact that yes, he's come home, but he was just annoyed that he's been given unfair treatment compared to him. And so realistically, we are probably all more like the brother in our in our interaction. So when we, when we see or hear of someone that maybe has made bad decisions, and maybe we feel like they don't kind of bear the consequences of those decisions, and whether that's in church life, whether they're not kind of, I don't know, chastised or condemned, or they don't kind of, that doesn't happen. We feel like they get good treatment despite what they've done, which is grace. Yeah. Then we get resentful of that, and that can bring a lot of division. So we are all probably most like the brother, but we all need to be more like the father, and be more graceful. And they're being more like the father, as in being more like God. Because we have all also been, even though we probably all identify a bit more with the brother, in reality, we might not actually be honest with ourselves. And that's what I was really hoping with this message, is to really challenge us all, myself included, that realistically, if we've been a Christian for, a minute, or we've been in church life for a while, we're probably going to be the brother, even though we might think, oh no, I'm probably more like the father. No, we're the brother. But we have all been the prodigal son. We have all received forgiveness. We've all messed up. We've all done things we regret. We've all said things we regret. We've all said and done things that hurt other people. Yet we have had forgiveness, both from God and probably from the people around us. So we need to show that to other people.
And you had a couple of key points as to what that looks like. Before we come on to some of these other questions, do you want to just tell us what they were?
Like, the first and foremost, and I think this is something that I'm really trying to remind myself of on a regular basis to do, but is that the father, the key thing in the father, the story that the father did was he treated the son based on who he was, not based on what he had done. Yeah. And I think in our world, it's very easy it's easy to slip in. It's a very dangerous way of thinking, I think. But when we start thinking, oh, that person has done something that I perceive is wrong, therefore they as a person are wrong. Yep. And that is just not the case. But that's when we get into that whole cancel culture thing. It's like that one thing, therefore I don't like, therefore I don't like them at all. And actually we are not what we do. We are not just what we say and do. We are an individual, or human beings that have inherent value because God values us. Yeah. And so therefore we need to, because God loves each and every one of us the same, we need to treat each other in that way, not treat each other, how we react to people based on what they say and do. It's who we are.
Yeah, I think it's such a powerful principle.
Yeah.
And then there was a second part that you thought.
Yeah, that the father demonstrated grace. Yeah. And obviously I alluded to that before, but grace is not just kind of having forgiveness for what we have done wrong, but it's getting a treatment over and above that that we just don't deserve. So, it would have been okay, I think, it would have been very reasonable for the father to say, when the son comes home, say, oh yeah, don't worry about your debt or whatever, don't worry what you've done wrong, I'm just glad you're home, and that be it. But he didn't just say that, he said, right, we're going to have a party. Yeah. And like a really lavish one at that, like the best party ever. So that's grace. It's not just mercy, it's not just getting away with it, it's getting what we don't deserve as well. And that's not to say that we, people in the real world, that people we're not, no one should ever, go to prison for committing a crime or not have consequences for wrong behaviour, in terms of, in the legal sense even. But that doesn't mean that actually as Christians, we need to be the person who condemns and fixes. Yeah. I think we are, generally, we probably err too much on we should tell you off and not accept what you've done. Rather than the grace element to it. Like, the Bible talks about how Jesus came with grace and truth. And you can't, they're both in equal measure. So, because you see his interactions with people in the Bible that, he'll forgive their sins, he'll show them, and he'll give them grace, but he also gives them truth as well, like, go and sin no more. Or you'll see that in his interactions with people, but I think as Christians, we like to be the truth. We like to really make sure people know what they've done wrong, when actually maybe we need to show them a bit more grace. Yeah. And through showing them grace and pointing them to Jesus, they will grow, develop, and become more like him.
Yeah. It's quite a perspective shift as well, isn't it? That actually not only are we meant to not show judgment to people who are returning, but actually we should celebrate their return.
Yeah.
Not to say that we celebrate what they've done, but actually we celebrate, as you say, them as an individual and the value that they have.
Yeah.
And the fact that they've chosen to return is such a powerful thing.
Yeah.
Wow, well, there's lots to think about, and we've got lots of questions coming in. So I'm going to ask some of these, but there's still plenty of time to submit your questions. And even if there isn't, if they're good, I'll make the time. So I guess, let me ask you the first two together, because I think, you can probably answer these. Is there a difference between conflict and standing up for something we believe in? How do we navigate that? And I feel like maybe along similar lines is this other question. How do we deal with situations where the other person has an extreme view on a topic that we're passionate about?
Okay, so conflict versus standing up
For what you believe in.
Yeah.
And I wonder if maybe the extreme views might be one of those
Yeah.
situations where part of navigating this.
So, yeah, I think there is a difference between conflict and standing up for what you believe in, because I think and also how you deal with people with extreme views, because it's just the way in which you go about it. I said in my message, we shouldn't be, it's not, I don't want us to get confused with showing grace and then just not standing up for injustices, because there are things that are not okay. But it's the way in which it's done that I think is important, and the way in which we treat the person who we may be disagreeing with. And I think if we ultimately view the other person with inherent value, like we would, and treat them as we would want to be treated, even though we disagree fairly fundamentally on things, then I think we're not going to have a major conflict. We'll have a disagreement. We won't agree on issues. But I think the challenge and the way in which we go about it is, and I'm really trying to challenge myself to do this, is to, when I encounter someone who has different views to me, and that can be quite something I'm really quite passionate about, and something that's really, I feel, is very important, and I feel that actually them promoting their views is causing harm. Anti-vaxxers, for example, that's one of my personal things that really gets me angry on the inside, because I think it's harmful for people to not access this kind of healthcare. But I'm really trying to, when I interact with people, to see them actually, okay, they have this opinion, but it's going to they have that opinion for a reason. So I need to remember that this person is still a human being of value. And also, when the way in which I approach my interaction with them is, and this is where I think we all go wrong, is I shouldn't be out to just try and persuade them to believe what I believe. I shouldn't be there just to try and correct their thinking. I need to try and understand why they are thinking that way, and to try and understand their perspective a bit more. Because if I do that, that gives me, it reignite my compassion for them. Because actually, and I keep trying to sell myself this, like people who are the ones who are very vehemently anti-vaccination. I think it will come from a place of fear, or not for everyone, because I can't generalise for every single person, but for the people that I have had interactions with, patients, that kind of thing, they're just scared, because especially when it comes to the COVID vaccine, because of the lack of information, the fact that it's all very new, all this kind of stuff. And then when you are scared, you maybe go to sources that aren't accurate and all this kind of thing. So it's trying to understand someone's perspective. How have they ended up with that perspective? Because actually there may be, even though you may feel their perspective is wrong, and it may well be something that is wrong, like racism, but there will be a reason they've ended up in that place. And if we don't understand that, if we don't try and get to know that, we've got no hope of helping them understand our perspective. Yeah. And you may well encounter people that will not want to understand your perspective, will not want to engage in any kind of conversation. And you know what? Fine. I think that's the point. Once you've tried, do not engage. There's some people who are out for a fight. And again, that'll be for a reason. Like that probably to do with some kind of brokenness on the inside. They're kind of trolls on the internet. But you've got to pick your battles, I think, as well. And it's not a battle, because I don't want us to be fighting other people. I don't want us to start off in the position of I've got to defend myself. It's like, no, let's try and understand someone else's perspective. And maybe through doing that, we can learn something from each other. Or maybe it might be through you showing the olive branch, through you showing that, what is it Obama said in his inauguration speech, like if we can show our enemies an open hand rather than a clenched fist, maybe we might get somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I think if we can be open to understanding someone's perspective who we disagree with, and not just be set out to defend and make them think what we think, or make them understand that they're wrong, we are going to have a meaningful conversation. And maybe, like I listening to the radio about, again, anti-vaxxers, there's a lady talking about who she was an anti-vaxxer, and then she believes vaccinations are good. And she said that, the way in which I was persuaded was not through someone telling me I was wrong. Like, actually, who does respond to that? Who responds to be like, you're wrong? Oh, okay, right, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
No, that's going to get someone on the back, on the defence more, But she said someone took the time to understand what my concerns were, and took the time to help me understand too.
Yeah.
And that was it. So I think, if we can, even though we may really disagree with someone to the point of we really feel that their views are wrong, their views are wrong, not they are wrong, but if we take the time to try and understand them and show that open hand, maybe they'll do it back.
Yeah.
And maybe we might actually get somewhere and achieve something.
I guess that's part of what's so powerful about seeing who they are, not what they do. It's the same thing, isn't it? And I often think about the biblical picture of justice, and why we should strive for justice is actually because you recognize the image of God in someone else. And that applies when you see someone who is the victim of racism, for example, that you seek to restore them and bring them up. That's what the biblical picture of justice is. But actually, we don't do that by not seeing it in the person that we disagree with, right? And actually that we just commit a different kind of injustice if we dismiss that person based on views that we find difficult. But I mean, it's certainly a challenging topic, but I think that's a really powerful way of approaching it.
Yeah, and I think, again, it's difficult when you come to like issues that are where, they're really serious, and where people are behaving badly, maybe in a really abhorrent kind of way. That's really challenging. But again, if you see the individual and why they might be behaving like that, actually you can probably get a bit, not say we shouldn't have boundaries and let people be like vile to us, but you're still not going to get very far if you just completely shut them down. So the example I gave was, and I think it's quite a helpful example in terms that might be applicable to other people's situations, is at work. So we often get patients who are abusive to our staff. That is obviously not okay. But we still treat them and their medical needs. And actually the patients I know that are aggressive or verbally aggressive or whatever to us, and abusive to our staff, when you get to know them, they're broken people, and they're distressed. They don't know. Not saying that's not okay still to be rude to someone, to be horrible to someone, but they're coming from a place of brokenness. And actually, when you engage with them, you give them boundaries to say, okay, like that's not okay. If you do it again, we're going to give you a written warning. If you do it again, I'm afraid we're going to have to remove you from our books. You have to go to different practice, which is pretty difficult where I work because there aren't any other practices nearby. And usually it never gets to that point of removing them from our list, because they learn, like, actually, we're here to help you. This is the system. You need to engage with it, but we're here to help. And actually, the reason they are acting that badly, the reason they're behaving like that is because they're broken and they don't know any other way of getting what they need. But the only way we're going to help them and they're going to change is if we engage with them with boundaries, with consequences, but we still engage.
Yeah, that's really powerful. We could talk to you about that point for hours, but we've got some other questions. Keen to get through as many of these as we can. Someone's asking, what would you say to people who may identify with the prodigal son and fear the return to community?
I mean, that's why I wrote this message. because I know I've got good friends of mine that I know may well be feeling that they're in that situation. And that's why I think we all need to take this message really seriously if we're not that person. I was thinking about this on the way here, like, you know how in messages you hear a message and you think, oh, I really want XYZ person to hear that message. And you might think, yeah, it was good or whatever, I'll take it on board. But you kind of think, no, that's for this person. So if you are that person, if you thought that, this message is for you. Because if you think about like, oh, that person really needs to hear this message because they're quite judgmental, what have you just done?
Yeah.
You've judged that person. Like a lot of people think, oh, being judgmental is, being really harsh and, speaking bad about people and just, that's not me. No, we all are. This message is for you.
Yeah.
This message is for you. It's your problem. It's my problem. It's your problem. It's your problem. It's my problem. It's your problem. Okay?
Yeah.
Don't let yourself think this is a message for someone else. This is for you. Because we all need to take this seriously so that the prodigal sons feel comfortable coming home.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess as much as it's powerful for someone who's in that position being concerned about coming back to hear about the grace that's available. Actually, we have to show that grace as a community.
We can say it from the platform till we're blue in the face, but unless we see it modelled in every single person in this community, people aren't going to get it.
Yeah.
And, from a practical point of view, if you know of someone that is feeling very apprehensive about coming back, just do everything you can as an individual, as a friend, to help them get them back in the room, whether that's, sitting with them in the service if you're in a social bubble together, because that's what we can do, or taking them along to a picnic to ease them back in, getting them into a house party to ease them back in, whatever, so that they can just have it, little steps of being proven to them, this is a welcoming community, it doesn't matter what's happened.
But to that person who's maybe conscious of maybe that actually they're not in a great place and they want to come back, but they're feeling anxious about it, would you say, come back and we'll do our best?
I couldn't say that enough. Come back, and this, I'm hoping, as a result of this message and just in general, that, the way our community is, that shouldn't be a problem. But I'm really hoping that this message is going to challenge each and every one of us for that. Yeah.
What advice would you give us in terms of putting aside how we think about someone and treating them with grace?
I was thinking about this. Again, it goes back to work. Like, I said at the beginning of my message that work has been pretty stressful recently, like high volume, and I've definitely kind of lost my natural compassion for people. So I think in response to that question, I think it's okay to fake it till you make it. I know that might sound cold or whatever, but I think if our first response can be empathy, even though we don't feel like it, just do it. Just think just lead with compassion, lead with grace, even though you might be thinking, well, I don't agree with that, or or I think that was a stupid thing to do, or, I don't agree with what they've said. Lead with compassion, lead with empathy, lead with grace, even if you don't feel like it, and work your heart out in the meantime. Give yourself a little bit of space to work that out. But if we can first respond, because I'm not saying I'm condemning people for thinking these judgmental things. I'm saying the reason I'm saying it is because we all do. We all have, issues with other people or other things, and we will all judge people. But it's what we do with it. It's but we have to recognize it in ourselves and go, oh yeah, that was a bit judgmental, or I'm being a bit presumptive there, or maybe I don't actually know what the whole situation is, or maybe I haven't really understood their perspective. Majority of the time that will be the case. So lead with compassion, lead with grace, lead with forgiveness, lead with empathy, and then work the rest out later. Because actually you might find out more information about that person that gives you that natural compassion and empathy anyway.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Few other things to touch on. Somebody's saying, when will we be able to come back to a church service? When?
Well, you can come back Sunday evening services. as of this Sunday, registrations are open again. We are having a phase 1
Yeah.
of return to on-site services. So book in for Sunday night, 6 p.m. this weekend.
Yeah, 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Sunday night. Sunday evening service is
Sunday
from
evening
6.
service, yeah. You need to book.
Yeah.
There are restrictions still because of COVID and the current government guidelines, but it's still worth being in the room.
Yeah. And I think see it within the context of the other things that we're doing as well. You might think, well, I'm not sure I'm ready to come back into the building, or for geographical reasons that might be challenging, but actually we very intentionally are doing other things at the same time.
Yep.
So we very intentionally have picnics that are happening because actually they allow us a little bit more freedom in terms of how many people can gather together. And that's a great way to come back to the community, is to find a picnic that's near you maybe. And I think watch parties are a really powerful opportunity.
Yeah,
There's something really special about being able to watch a service with someone else. And that might be a step back for you. So I think, we appreciate that no one of those things is necessarily going to scratch every itch in terms of a return to church as we would hope it will be or as we want it to be, but they're all a step in the right direction, and they're all part of that journey back toward the big return, aren't they?
Yeah. And hey, if you're feeling like that question earlier, if you're feeling like the prodigal son, actually, I think our Sunday evening services, as they are at the moment, are the perfect time to come back. If you're apprehensive about, being in that kind of community environment, lots of people here asking questions or knowing what's happened, or you're feeling like you've got that kind of nervousness about that people might know things about you that you don't want, or whatever it is, whatever it's causing you to. Because the restrictions, you come in, you get sat down, you're not allowed to really move from your seat unless you go into the toilet, and then you have to leave and not mingle. So it's a great way to kind of dip your toe back in the water of a live on-site service without the kind of intensity of, being out in the atrium, mingling with people and people asking you how your year has been and you having to say, well...
Yeah. Which is part of the reason why we were keen, even though there are restrictions still in place, even though we can't do things exactly as we want to, is actually we think all of these things are part of getting ourselves ready, because there is going to be a sense of progress there as well. Helena, this isn't a question.
Okay.
It's a challenging situation, but I'd like you to speak to it. I've got one more thing I want to ask you after this, but someone is being really honest, really, and it's just in a single sentence is explaining the situation that they're in. And I wonder if you could just speak to this person wherever they are. They say, I feel like I'm losing control of my life and I feel so distant to God.
Oh.
Can you speak to that? Can you speak to that person tonight?
Well, I'm so sorry to hear that, first and foremost. And in a weird way, it's great that you have acknowledged that, because actually I think that's the first step to a change coming. A lot of people are losing control of their lives and are very distant from God, but they don't realize it. So actually that's the hardest and the biggest realization, kind of the reflection that you've made is so well done you for having that realization and being so open about it as well. And I guess the next step would be, to get back involved in the community. So I think the only way as human beings that we can cope with the challenges that life throws at us when we feel like our life is spiraling out of control is with God and with friends and family, with a community. You've spoken on multiple occasions about how the sort of the importance of community on our mental well-being. But this community is here to support you in your relationship with God, which sounds like that's what is a real priority at the moment. But also is that support just in general for life. Maybe you might find someone to go to advice for about one particular issue that is, we've got that diversity in church life. We've got people from all different walks of life with different skill sets that might be able to help in different ways or give you advice on different issues that you might be struggling with. But first and foremost, get back into church, into the community, engaging with services and pursuing that relationship with God.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing that I would say, I think there's so much that's powerful about that, but I would also just say that actually, God has not distanced himself from you. And actually, even where you are tonight, if you will pray a simple prayer, God, I open up my life to you. God, I pray that you would draw near to me again. I don't know whether you're someone who has had a relationship before, or maybe you're still exploring this, but actually, if you would begin to talk to God, even in the midst of your situation, He's not grown farther away from you, and He's waiting just as the Father is in the
Yeah.
account that Helena has spoken from, the story that Helena has spoken from, he's waiting with open arms for the moment that actually we choose to return to him. And, I think the other thing I would say is that God's very good at dealing with out of control situations. If you look at the start of Genesis, it talks about the fact that the Spirit of God was hovering over the chaos before creation began. So God is not afraid of your chaos. God does some of his best work starting in your chaos.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, if you will just open that situation up to him, he will begin to restore some sense of order and some sense of control. And it's not going to happen straight away. But, the most powerful moment in the account, the story that you told, is when the prodigal son realizes life's not going the way he wants it to, and he decides to turn around.
And
And that
comes home.
literally, the word repentance in the
Yeah.
Bible is about turning around. It's deciding that you're going in the wrong direction and you want to go the other way. And actually, if that's you tonight, I fully endorse all that Helena said. And I think, make tonight the night that you decide to turn around, to come back to God and to come back towards his community, whatever that looks like. So let me ask you the last question real quick. Was it a coincidence that you spoke on the same story as Sam?
Yes. Well, coincidence or Jesus? Who knows? When he started preaching the other week, I was like, oh gosh, I hope he doesn't say the same thing as me because I've already written my message and I don't want to change it. But thankfully, it was just a different perspective. And that's the beauty of the Word of God, is that you can draw so much from it. So.
And I think something, as you say, really powerful about the two different perspectives from
Yeah.
that. I think it's really interesting to look at those messages together. And I think that I'm not going to say any more about that, but I would encourage people to go back and read it for themselves
Yeah.
and actually, ask, why is it that this has come up twice already? Who knows whether it will come up again? But actually, in this moment of return, God has so much to say to us through that story.
Yeah. Ultimately, the greatest thing about this parable is it just shows the heart of God for people to come back into relationship with him, for people to come home. And the celebration that happens, regardless of who they are, what they've done, is incredible. And I hope that as a church we can replicate that as much as possible. We can give people a glimpse of what heaven on earth is like.
Yeah. So powerful. Well, we're going to have to leave it there. Unsurprisingly, perhaps combining you and I has led to this section being slightly longer than usual, perhaps.
yeah.
But I want to take the opportunity to make good on the promise that we made earlier, which is that we're going to give people the opportunity to pray, or we've got some prayer requests coming in. If my laptop will play ball, I will read through some of those. But Hels, I would love it if you would pray for some of these things, which I'll go through. I'll read some of these things that people are thanking God for. We've got a number of situations that people are thanking God for. We've got someone who's thanking God that their visa renewal has finally been granted after a 19-week wait.
Amazing.
We've got someone else who's thanking God for his faithfulness. We've got someone who's thanking God for great friends and relationships built in faith and cemented through God. It speaks so well to what you talked about already. Someone's thanking God that we're able to meet on site last Sunday at church, and someone else is thanking God for healing someone's injured eye with no medical intervention.
Amazing.
What a powerful thing. We've got a number of other situations that people are praying for, and maybe you didn't have a chance to write it down, but we're going to pray for you today as well. We've got people who are praying for confidence for an upcoming interview. Someone else is praying for breakthrough in a house move. We're praying for someone's dad who needs a cancer operation and they're worried about the risks of that operation. We're praying for peace and wisdom. Someone else has got an operation coming up this Friday. We're praying for comfort at this nervous time. We've got other people who are continuing to pray for pain that they're having with their neck. Someone else is having chest pain that's being investigated. People who are praying for family members to be made well, and praying for a neighbor who has tumors on her spine. And we're also praying that she's going to come back to Jesus or come into relationship with Jesus, maybe for the first time, I don't know. But we've got people who are asking that God would heal family relationships, and someone else who's praying tonight for hope in a dark place. Helena, would you lead us in prayer for all of these things?
Yes. Why don't you join with me? Oh, Jesus, thank you so much for all of those amazing answers to prayer, and there's the praise reports that we've heard. It just fills us with great faith to know that you are able, that there's nothing that you cannot do, no situation that is too great for you to fix. And it sounds like from the different prayer requests that we've had tonight that there are some pretty great as in big situations that need fixing, that need your intervention. We know that you know every single one of them in detail, that you already have the solution for those situations, whatever they may be. And I just pray that we would see that now. We pray for healing for each person mentioned tonight that needs healing, for healing of relationships, for your intervention in people's lives, that you would make yourself known to people in such difficult times, Lord God, that you would be close to them, that you would comfort them, that you would be their peace, you would be their joy, you would be their strength. And that all the people who are helping support those people that we've heard of in need tonight, Lord God, that you would be close to them too and support them too. And you would give everyone hope and the assurance that you will move in one way or another. We know that it may not be in the way we expect, but we know that you are a God that goes beyond our wildest dreams, beyond our expectations. And so we dream big tonight, God, in all the things that you can do, and we lift these things to you in your mighty name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you so much, Helena, for reflecting, joining us, dashing from work to be here with us this evening. And thank you so much for joining us as well. One of the things we'd love to mention is just some of the ways, or one of the ways that people can stay connected.
Yes, proclaimers.com/connect.
Yeah, everything you need is there for us to stay in touch with you.
Social
Make sure
media.
that you get the emails about everything that's going on, about, the various different things that are happening. Yep. Social media?
Yes. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
Yeah. If people go to Instagram tonight, they can find a picture of you. Who wouldn't want that?
Better one than we get tonight, because I'm quite tired.
But we would love you to follow what's happening on social media. And there's all sorts of things coming up. We've already mentioned a lot of them. This is a house party week. If you're not in a house party, you can, again, go to that same place and we'll let you know some details about those. And coming up this weekend, we're so excited about picnics. Yes. We're so excited about watch parties. And we're so excited about a Sunday evening service. But I also want to say, I'm still super excited about our Sunday morning service.
Yeah.
It's easy for us to kind of think, well, with the other things happening, to lose sight on how powerful it is to have that one central opportunity. We can't all be in the same place for a picnic. We can't all be in the same place for a watch party. We can't all be in the room for our Sunday evening service. But actually, we can still continue to gather together across our whole community, wherever you are, Norwich, Ipswich, across the UK and beyond. We can still come together around that Sunday morning. And there's something so powerful, I think, about that opportunity. We've got some exciting things planned for this, for the next kind of month of our Sunday morning services as we build up towards the big return. And I think we're going to be hearing from Pastor Tom, this Sunday. So we're just really excited about those opportunities. And I know it's easy to think, well, on-site service might be more exciting, or the picnics might be a great opportunity to see people. But I think there's something still so powerful about those Sunday morning opportunities that we have to gather together. So we hope you be there for that. We'd love to see you online. If you're still exploring things, we'd love to invite you back. And also, as we said, if you're in that place and you're thinking, man, I want the kind of relationship with God they've talked about tonight, you don't have to wait any longer. You can pray that simple prayer tonight. You can simply speak to God and say, God, I open up my life to you. And we can't promise that everything gets easy from there, but we do know that things begin to change, and we would love to help you to get connected into our community as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Great.
Well, I think that's probably about us done, isn't it?
I think so.
Helena and I are going to go and talk about the ins and outs of Gareth Southgate's selection for the England squad. We won't bore you with that. We will see you again very soon. Take care. Wash your hands. Stay safe.